Hey guys, it's Alex Pierce from BlenderRender.com. Welcome back to the Blender360 tutorial series. This is episode 3. We're going to be talking about importing models using Sketchfab. So if you haven't already created a Sketchfab account, go ahead and create one now. If you haven't watched episode 2, go watch that and make sure you install the Sketchfab add-on, and then you'll be ready to get started. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to push the numpad 0 to get out of this view. I'll go ahead and push Z and go over to solid, so we just see this right here. I'm going to push Shift A and bring in a mesh that's a cube. And it's good to, I like to have something in my scene. If I push in, we can see the item properties, and we can see this cube is 2 meters by 2 meters by 2 meters. This gives me a sense of scale, so anything I import, I can judge it based on this cube. I can say, okay, I know this cube is 2 meters, and I can go off that. You can also, if I push 1, it'll bring me into this kind of view. You can click on this measure tool, and then you can measure things out. So I can see that this cube is 2 meters long, but yeah, it's just good to have a visual. In my opinion, it's good to have a visual representation of your scene. Okay, so in the 3D viewport, if we push in to open up this menu, go down to Sketchfab, activate add-on, and now you'll need to log in. I've already logged in, but once you've logged in, you will be able to download and import models. And let's just talk a little bit about the Sketchfab add-on. Before we do that, I'll mention 2 things about this because I know a lot of you are new to Blender. These tabs over here, when you install hundreds of add-ons, it's hard to navigate between these, and it's easy to accidentally get lost. So one of the first things I want to mention to you, I wish I would have known when I first started, was if you shift click on this menu at the top, if you hold down shift and push right click, you get this pin. You can pin this to the thing, and it gives you the shortcut too. It's shift left mouse. So if you do shift left mouse, you'll get this little pin icon, and what that does is now it doesn't matter what tab I'm on, the Sketchfab add-on is going to be there. And it looks like there's actually 2 different panels, so the import panel needs to be pinned. So if I go to item or tool or any of these, the Sketchfab plugin will be there. So yeah, that's great. The other thing is you can drag this out to be wider, and if you hold down Control and middle mouse, you can make this text larger or smaller. So those are just a few quick tips when you're working with these in-menu add-ons. So the Sketchfab add-on is pretty simple, but it's very awesome. And so you can do a few things. If you have a pro account, or in my case, we have an enterprise account, you can actually click on and see just your models, which is great. It's a very great way to have your own asset library and easily bring them into Blender. This is very, very cool. I think people like Jeff Martin are doing a lot of photo scanning and putting it on Sketchfab. This is great. You should definitely use this feature. And you can also search with these different filters. But you can, of course, also just search here. So you can just search plane, and then you can say just through your models, or you can just look and see what models are here. Now, if you have to click on this thumbnail to see the rest of the model. So you can click on, now you can click on any of these, and you can go to the next page, click on the thumbnail again, you'll get more. And so you can see already, and all these are free to download. There are a lot of models on Sketchfab that you cannot download or are paid to download, but the ones that you see in this add-on are all free. So let's look for chair. If we look for a chair, we can also put these filters. Let's say we want the face count to be pretty low. Let's say we're going to do something in VR. We could put the face count up to 10 and then uncheck staff pick, and then we can see, okay, so these are the things that have chair that are pretty low poly. So this one's a pretty low poly version. We could also say animated. I don't know if there's a ton of animated chairs. It looks like there are. So these filters can be really, really helpful. Yeah, of course you can search by relevance, likes, etc. You can search in specific categories. And then when you have the model you want, you can just push import to import it. Let's look up one of Jeff's models. So if we look up Jeffrey Martin, we can find what photo scans he has here on Sketchfab. And if you look up here if we look down here, you'll see it's maybe hard to see on the screen, but there's a little icon for download 3D model. So all of these ones that don't have that icon, we can't actually download those in Blender or through this website. But he does have this one that's publicly available. So let's go ahead and search for this in Blender. Just going to do copy and then search and then paste, enter. I'm going to turn off animated because I doubt it's animated. And now we get this model from Jeffrey Martin. So if we push import model, before we do that, I'm actually going to save. We're going to do import model. It's going to import it to the location of this 3D cursor. So by default, this 3D cursor is set to the origin of the world, which is right in the center. You can change that by clicking on it and clicking on the tool up here and then moving it around, or holding down Shift and right clicking, which is the most normal way. You can also push F3 and reset it. So you can say world origin. So object snap cursor to world origin. Now it's back to the world origin. Now I've already imported this, so I know it's actually not centered, but it's good to know, like when you're placing 3D models, that it's going to place it based on where this cursor is. So I'm going to go ahead and push import model. Depending on your internet speed, it might take longer or shorter. I'm going to go ahead and push in. Okay, it's imported. I don't see it. Let me zoom out a little bit. Ah, there it is. Okay, so we found his model, and this is several different pieces. So in order to move this whole model, there's a few different things we could do. If this is the only thing in our scene, we could push A to select all and move it that way, but we have these other objects, so that's not a good choice. We can select this way by just clicking and dragging, but we might not select everything if we do it that way. So the other way that's good, especially if it's a model you don't know too well, is clicking on it in the outliner up here. And there's a few different ways we could do it. This looks like it's a parent object. So if we click on this parent object, then we can move it either using the move tool or using the shortcuts on the keyboard. The standard shortcuts are G to grab, R to rotate, and S to scale. And one thing that's really cool, it's really weird when you're first getting used to Blender, but I think it makes a lot of sense once you get used to it. A lot of people, like myself, were really frustrated when they first started, but then after they got used to it, they were like, man, I wish we could do this in other programs. But basically, using the grab tool, you can push G to grab, to move it, right? And then you can push any axis you want. So if I want to move it up on the Z axis, I can push Z to go up. And then let's say I want to reset, I don't actually want to confirm. I want to go back to where it was. I can just push escape or the right mouse and it'll go back to where it was. So I'm going to do G, Z to move it up. And then I could do, instead of Z, I could just push X or I could push Y. And then the same with scale, for instance. So I can scale it. If I push S and scale, it'll scale uniformly. If I just want to scale it on the Z axis, I can scale it on the Z axis. If I just want to scale it on X or on Y, I can do that as well. And if I don't want to apply the change, I can just push right click and it'll undo. So for this example, I think I'm just going to try to put it sort of in the middle. There's a few different ways I could do it. If I wanted to move this model right in the middle, one thing I could do is, so I could select it, and then I could push F3, and then search selection to cursor, and now it's going to snap it right to the cursor, which was at the world origin, and now we're right in the middle of the world. So that's cool. I'm going to go ahead and save. And now I want to see what this looks like. This is cool and all, but I want to see the textures that Jeff did. So there's two different views we could look. If we push Z and we go down to Material Preview, this is going to be the EV render engine, the real-time render engine. And you can see it's really responsive, but it's not the highest quality. And the lighting is probably not taking into account the lighting we have in our world. So let's push Z and then go up to rendered. And again, if you can go over here to this render tab, this little camera icon, click here and make sure you're on cycles. And then now you get to see it in the world view. And this is where the HDRI becomes really important. So that's like, you know, the number. Someone asked me actually why the HDRI was in the very first episode, and I think for me, I think HDRIs are like probably the most important thing you can do when you're like, and like the number one thing I wish I would have known when I was starting Blender, because this lighting, you can see the sun direction, this light is lighting our scene. So the light that we're seeing on this is actually coming from this world, and I can demonstrate that if we go to our shader down here. And again, if you don't have this set up, you can move this window up. If you don't have a window there, you can click on this right down at the bottom, and you can drag up a new window, and then click on this top one, go down to Shader Editor, and then go from Object to World. And then you have this set up here, and then we're going to activate another add-on called Node Wrangler. It's built into Blender, but it's not turned on by default. So if you go to Edit Preferences, Add-ons, Node Wrangler. So you see this one, Node Wrangler. Click on that and save preferences. You should always use Node Wrangler. It does a lot of different things. I'm not going to get into any of them really, but the first one and the main one we're going to talk about is Control T. So if you select this image, you have your HDRI here. It's all set up. If you push Control T, then it automatically sets this up for you. And basically what this is basically just a way to rotate your HDRI. So we want to rotate on the Z. So if we want this lighting to change, we could say, let's go to 200. And you can see now very clearly that this is lighting our object here. So it's not only giving us our background, but it's also giving our lighting. And it would, if we were really trying to make this model look like it was on the scene, then this is really a huge step forward because you already have that lighting information. I should also make a very important note right now, because I know a lot of you are coming from the 360 video world. HDRs are equirectangular, but not all equirectangular photos are HDRs. If you've taken, a photo or a 360 photo from your Insta360 one, that does not have the information that this HDR has. In fact, I could probably do a demonstration of that real quick too. If I convert this to JPEG, and then I use this, so you can see. So this is a great example. So this one is a HDR. This one is a JPEG. So if you have a PNG or a JPEG or some MOV or whatever you created your equirectangular photos from, this is the result you would get. So an HDR would actually light this scene, and it would give it the background, but it would also, more importantly, give it these nice shadows, like these hard shadows, the soft shadows, all that stuff is coming from the HDR lighting. If you just used a regular equirectangular photo, the background looks exactly the same, but you don't get the lighting at all from the scene. This is not being lit realistically at all. So that's just a very important note for those of you 360 filmmakers thinking, oh, I've got a million 360 photos, I can just use those. Not really. There is a way to use one for the background and one for the lighting, and we'll talk about that in another episode. But yeah, for now we have this, and this is great. This is all I really want to get to for now. So now let's just do a few more things here. If we click on this model, let's say we wanted to duplicate this model. Well, again, there's a few ways we could do it. If we click on this parent object, we could click on all of these objects and we could create a new, we could do Shift D to duplicate. And then again, once you duplicate, you can actually push X to just move on the X axis, or Y to just move on the Y. And let's do a few of these. So let's just go ahead and duplicate a few more times. Push X, move it over here, Shift D, X, move it on the X axis, move it over there. And now let's just go to our camera, push 0. This is another cool thing about AP navigation. If you're in camera view, so if I push the number pad 0 to go into camera view, I can actually move while I'm in the camera view by just doing right click and WASD. So now we're inside of it, it looks like. Let's see, let's get outside first. Okay, there we go. Now we're getting somewhere. And you can actually pan around, and you can do some really cool things just using this thing. So now we have our camera set up. Let's just go ahead and do something. Let's find a cool composition. I'm gonna go ahead and go into solid view while I move. And I'm actually gonna come look at the camera and see where it's at. So looking at the proximity of this, I think I wanna move this closer. Okay, let's just go back into this view. Okay, so I'm gonna select these. It's gonna be this one here. And I'm gonna move this. So that'll be cool for now. So this will be good for now. So I'm just trying to find an interesting composition. I'm not really trying to get too advanced in here. This is more about just importing models from Sketchfab. So, but yeah, let's just take this setting right in here. So I'm going to do I'm going to do Control S for save. And now I think I'm going to render this out and see what it looks like. So you can zoom here and just kind of take a look. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So to render, again, we can go up here, render image. Before we do that, I want to look at a few more settings over here. So if you go into your render tab, we're not going to worry too much about all of this down here. But again, we're going to make sure that GPU is turned on. The sampling, this is really important. If you put this really low, it's going to be low. It's going to be really, really grainy. And the higher you go, the higher quality it's going to be. But at some point, it doesn't make sense. Like there's some people who render at just insane numbers. And it depends on what you're doing. But for exterior stuff, you can usually get away with a lot lower numbers. I'm actually, for now, I think I'm just going to go for 64. And then I'm going to check adaptive sampling. Adaptive sampling, if you hover over any of these, it actually tells you what it does. It gives you tooltips. But adaptive sampling, in general, is just good to just turn it on. And then you can turn on denoising here. And I think we'll go ahead, yeah, we'll go ahead and use the denoising here. If you have optics card, you can use optics. And then let's just do Control S. And yeah, that'll be it for now. Let's not worry about any of these other ones for now. So I'm going to go ahead and push F12, which is the same as going to render image. Okay, and this is the result. So I think I don't want to be this close. So I'm actually going to go back to my view here, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Let's see, let's come. And turn my viewport samples down. That should make it a little bit more responsive here. Yeah, let's try something like this. So the other thing you can do on the render tab is you can go down to performance. If you open this up, and you can change this tile size. This is going to help a lot with your render. So if you have a good GPU, going higher size is going to be better. You might even go 1024, etc. And this might be a good time to I just did it so I can tell you. You can click on one of these and change it, right? And then you can click on the other one. But you can also click on one, and then while you're holding down, drag down, and you can change both values. So I can push 1024, oops, 1024, enter, and it'll change both at the same time. And you can also do math here. So you can do 1024 asterisk 2, and it'll multiply by 2. So I'm going to go back down. I'm going to say 512 for my card. Save, and now when I push render, it should render a little bit faster because it's using a bigger tile size. So let's just see what happens. All right, cool. Looking a lot better. There's 100 different things we could talk about and things we could do differently. One of the first things I want to do is actually remove all this green. I want to get rid of all this. But for now, I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole for right now. The main point of this is just to import a Sketchfab model, get used to moving it around, get used to scaling it, duplicating it, and that sort of thing. So once you have something you like, go ahead and render it out. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd actually love to see your renders, whether it's, you know, this Photoscanned stuff or any other things. There's a million things you can do just importing models from Sketchfab and rendering with an HDR in the background. You'd be surprised. You guys could probably make some amazing stuff, even with no further tutorials, even with knowing nothing else about Blender. I bet you could actually make some pretty amazing stuff just by bringing in Sketchfab models and lighting with an HDR. It's pretty incredible what you can do. So that's going to be it for this tutorial. Let me know if this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.